Good evening. The board reconvenes into open session following closed session at 7:07. There are no actions to report under closed session, and so we will move on with today's agenda to comments from the public. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the board at this time? You will have 3 minutes to provide your comment. For those of you that are listening to us live at this time, if you wish to address the board under public comments, you can do so by dialing 559-276-3150.
President Carrillo, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have, all right, so we do have a public comment from President Martinez. Let me put the phone up and make sure. Judy, you can speak.
Sonia?
Yes.
Sonia?
Yes.
I just wanted to do food highlights if I could.
Okay.
If you want me to do it this time, I can.
Yeah, we are at comments from the, so you do that right now. Judy.
I'm sorry, did you send one?
Judy, so we are at comments from the public right now, so you can address the board at this time.
Oh, okay, thank you. Trustee Correa, I appreciate that. This is Judy Martinez. I'm the president of CUDA, Central Unified Teachers Association. I just want to wish everybody a good evening to all the board trustees and Superintendent Alvarado and Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Davis and Assistant Superintendent Mr. Collegian. I'm not sure if Mr. McLean is there. Oh, there you are, Mr. McLean. Hello. As we begin to wrap up the third week of school closure, CUDA wanted to acknowledge the hard work, the late hours, the dedication, the willingness, the patience, and especially the flexibility that our Central Unified staff members have exhibited. We recognize and we are grateful for our cooks, our custodians, secretaries, district personnel, site and district administrators who continue to work, to report to work every day. And we're also happy to report that we signed a memorandum of understanding concerning the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And recently, Governor and Superintendent Thurman reported on the framework for labor management collaboration. And in speaking with Mr. Alvarado today, we communicated our satisfaction with this framework because it represents the importance of collaboration, which we have already begun. We still have a long, uncharted road ahead of us, but we feel confident that we will continue building on the
Hearing that there are no further comments from the public, we will move on to our action items. Our first item on the agenda is I-1, adopt resolution number 1920-51, extending school closure through 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Superintendent Carrillo, members of the board and our community that is joining us virtually this evening. On March the 26th, 2020, the governing board adopted resolution number 1920-47 regarding the extension of school closures and delegating authority to the superintendent to take the necessary actions to COVID-19. On March 31st, 2020, the California State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Thurman, issued correspondence to the California school superintendents throughout the state of California, which basically states in part that due to the current safety concerns and the need for ongoing social distancing, it currently appears that our students will not be able to return to school campuses before the end of the school year. On March the 31st of 2020, the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools issued correspondence to the school superintendents of Fresno County, which states in part, I am strongly recommending that all districts work with their boards to take action on school site closure for students being extended through the end of the semester and basically the end of the school year. So through this resolution, the administration is recommending that the board adopt resolution 1920-51, authorizing the district superintendent to extend the temporary closing of schools and on-site educational programs of the district through June 11th, 2020. This by no means means that we're going to stop educating our children. We will do that through distance learning like we have been for the past 3 weeks. The board also authorizes the superintendent to take all appropriate actions to address the threat and respond to COVID-19, just as it was referenced in the previous resolution. So it's staff's recommendation, right, to have the board adopt resolution 1920-51, extending school closures through the 1920 school year. We do have one amendment to the resolution, and that is, let me download this document. On page 2, number 3, where it states that the board authorizes the district superintendent to resume schools and on-site educational programs before June 11, 2020, if the superintendent, after consulting with federal, state, and local authorities, determines that schools and on-site educational programs may resume. It is the spirit of this resolution to have the flexibility to call our students back if we deem it is safe and appropriate to do so. And that means that it's safe not only to our students, but also to our employees and the community. And so we're hopeful that that hopefully this COVID-19 and that curve will flatten more rapidly than what's being anticipated at this point. And if it does, we would like the ability to bring our kids back and bring our staff back to resume education in its normal fashion. But the amendment that staff is recommending is that at the beginning of that we call for formal board action. So if we can add with formal board action, comma, the board authorizes, and the rest of that paragraph as it reads. Staff's recommendation is to approve the resolution as amended.
Thank you, Superintendent Alvarado. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, what are the wishes of the board with respect to this resolution with the proposed amendment? I'm sorry, Trustee Cox?
Motion to approve, please.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Cox. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard a second by Trustee Solis. All those in favor, if you can please communicate your support of the approval of the resolution with the amendment. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0-0. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to our next item. Item I2, approved technology purchase to support remote learning, presented by both Ms. Davis and Mr. McLean. Ms. Davis, would you like to lead, or is Mr. McLean?
Mr. McLean will lead it off and I'll help in any way I can.
Fantastic. Mr. McLean?
Thank you. Yeah, team effort here tonight. So as you know, we're rolling out our distance learning program and rapidly underway. We have been in contact with T-Mobile, who, if you go back to 2018, at that time, the board started working, not the board, but the board approved a contract. We started working with T-Mobile with our home to school program and for devices and hotspots. And so through this process now, we're finding that the need to add to our number of hotspots in the community. And so we have a proposal from T-Mobile under their education program to expand to another 500 hotspots. And we've attached all the information. We have pricing off of a state contract that's in place. And so I'll let Ms. Davis add anything she'd like to add on to that.
I think you got it, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McLean and Ms. Davis. At this time, any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Cox?
Quick question, Mr. McLean. So on the hotspots, I just want to be sure we're explaining it clearly for the public. Those are just little devices that will go home into each individual home that allow them to have internet access, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a limit on the amount of data they can download per month on these?
There is a limit on it. I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but it's consistent with our other hotspots that we've had. So I can
Yeah.
check with staff on that right now.
About the last time we approved it, I thought it was 1 gig, which is really not a lot and may have been sufficient for after school homework, but I'm thinking now that if it's full-time learning, are they adequate? I'd like to know that.
I take it back. It's unlimited.
Perfect. Okay, great then. And it is for a 24-month contract. We're just extending it for the end of the year, but it means that we'll be paying at 80,000 2 years in a row, or is that the total cost for both years?
It's
for
80,000 times 2, yeah,
For 24 months.
correct.
our expectation with that, if we can add to it, we will have that fee for 2 years in a row. We're anticipating it will continue to help us for students that may need to do credit recovery or weren't able to complete a class with support from a teacher or check in with teachers, that once we're back up in operation, we can use those hotspots to help us with that. So we think within 2 years, certainly we can have caught up on any of the needs of our families. It gives us some ability to do that because summer support's going to have to look different for us.
And that was my last question, Katie. Thank you very much. So we're anticipating we're checking out the actual devices plus hotspots. So Chromebooks, whichever is the appropriate for the student. And that is, we're anticipating they will keep it through the summer. They will not be returning it at the end of June. Is that correct? Or am I getting that wrong?
We'll evaluate that as we determine the need. We'll know where they're checked out to, and we're going to do that based on the checks that are happening currently. Each school is checking in with families to understand what need they have, what they're able to provide on their own, and what we need to help meet in the middle with. When we know more in May, June, we'll certainly update you on where we are with that. If they're not needed and they can be redirected to another student to benefit, that's our goal. However, if they're still needed to help a student continue on and have a teacher support during this interrupted time, and then we're going to allow them to continue to have it. So we're going to have to. What was that?
I was just going to say, and while they have the devices, how do they interact with our IT, or if there's any issues, do they work with their site? Is that what you're seeing? You're thinking they're going to, if they have some technical difficulty with their appliances?
Our IT team, Chris Martinez, has set up a tech helpline and supports. Right now, folks are going to their school site and asking those questions. Staff is going and getting help either from IT or from Jason Horseman if it's ed tech and software related. So we've got a great team ready on phones.
Sounds great. Thank you for all the planning.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Trustee Cox. Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question for Cabinet in regards to, we're just shy of 16,000 students. Is 500 enough? And if we find out that it's not enough, what is going to be the process to be able to add more? And if you said that, I apologize, I overlooked.
We are going to have to respond if it isn't enough. What we are aiming to do is braid different services. There are agencies in the area that are starting to step up and offer hotspots and the ability for families to have free internet. We're going to really have to team up on that and help folks to have, I think some of the companies are doing, 3 months of no fee internet if they have the infrastructure available in their house. And we know the governor announced some large businesses that are going to be adding some of the materials or needs into counties. And I think that's why our county superintendent has asked our superintendent for some specific information. After that, if we find we still have students that don't have the ability to have access, then we'll bring back to you and need to add more in. We don't want to create a situation where some do not have what they need. That said, we do have offline low tech options for students to continue learning. So during this period of time, we certainly haven't excluded students from the ability to have access to learning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cervantes. Trustee Paul?
So just to be clear on the contracting, it looks like we're extending an existing contract to December 31st, 2020 with the option to extend it further. Is that right?
Yes, so this is the same contract that we used back in 2018, but it has been extended through the end of this calendar year.
Okay, thank you. Then the other thing, the other question I had was the low performing school block grant funds and the COVID response fund. Is that partially going to cover the cost, completely cover the cost? How does that work?
Yeah, we have three. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's three pots of money there: CSI grants, low performing school block grant, and SB 117 COVID response funds. And together, all those funds will cover completely the cost. So there will not be any unrestricted general funds needed for this purchase.
Thank you very much.
It's
Thank you,
serving the
Trustee
very
Paul.
kids The grant is expected for. That's the money is serving them.
Trustee Atkins? Trustee Atkins, there you go.
Yes, Steve, I got a question here. On attachment number 5 for the T-Mobile account, it says at the bottom of the invoice, monthly service total is $7,335. Annual service total is $88,000. So you made the comment that that's a 24-month contract for $88,000. So I'm reading this that it's $88,000 per year.
No, I'm sorry. I believe what I was saying was that it is 88,000 times 2. So it is 100, as the board item says, $176,000 total for 24 months. So
I
apologize.
apologize then if I misunderstood what you were saying there then.
Thank you, Trustee Atkins. Trustee Solis?
Yes, are we reaching out to some of the county internet providers? I do know in the past that AT&T had large holes in our county areas.
Yes, we are, and we are taking advantage of and advertising through Parent Square on our website, as well as our liaisons are making contact with options that we have available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Solis. Any other questions? I do have a couple of questions. I know Trustee Paul asked the question, but can we clarify, do we at this time know how much is being covered by each of the 2 funding sources? Or do we not have that information?
We haven't finalized that right now, but we can provide that, come back and give you that information.
Okay. And then at this point, have we identified what students will be needing and using these devices? And if so, have we looked to ensure that they're going to be able to have access so there isn't any dead zones or anything with respect to these devices?
Staff currently is reaching out to their students and confirming their technology access, whether they need a device. Those, for the most part, have been deployed already over the last couple of weeks. In that same question that went by Parent Square, as well as by calls and emails from teachers directly to their students, includes a question about the internet access. And we have through tomorrow to collect that, and then we'll evaluate where the need is. We do know both our IT director and our ed tech director have a pretty good sense of where the dead spots, as you mentioned, are in the area. And we have had success already with our home to school program, with Hotspots being in the homes of students in those areas. But certainly we're going to have to navigate that as we move out and roll these out. We will keep that in mind, definitely. Our goal is, if we provide them with the resource, that it works effectively for them and they have a place to call if they have a question.
Thank you. And then lastly, how quickly are we going to be able to get these devices delivered? Or have they already been?
They are not already here, and that's why we were really excited to bring this forward to you tonight. That we're anticipating a 2 to 3 week, at the most 4 weeks for inventory. If we said 3 weeks, that puts us through, assuming positive support of that this evening, that would put us through spring break and 1 more week of school that we already have instructional plans in place for. So 3 to 4 weeks. We'd love them sooner if we can get them.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. I'm sorry, Superintendent Alvarado.
I just wanted to thank the board for the resolution at the last meeting, because this is an example of being able to make some adjustments as they come up. prior to this board meeting today and making the decision to have this board meeting tonight, staff was going to be directed to purchase these devices, because if we would have waited any longer, we would have missed out, because these devices are in high demand. So we really appreciate the resolution allowing us to be nimble at this time.
Thank you, Superintendent Alvarado. Hearing no further comments or questions from the board, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by trustee Solis. Is there a second?
Second.
And that was, okay. I have a second by trustee Cervantes. All those in favor, please communicate your support. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0-0. Thank you. And that concludes our agenda items. What are the wishes of the board with respect to adjournment?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Solis. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I have a trustee Cervantes. And was that a second by trustee Paul? All those in favor of adjourning, please communicate your support. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting is adjourned.